this tutorial, we'll go over setting up a Node.js Azure function, including how to provision the infrastructure required using Terraform, and then publishing this function and testing it out and using it and reviewing the results in the Azure portal. So this is the function we'll be deploying today. One of the good things about this function is it makes use of the trigger, the input binding, and the output binding. Triggers are required for all Azure functions, and that's basically how the function gets invoked. In this example, we'll be using a Azure Storage Account storage queue. So the way this code works is it is triggered by a new message being added to an Azure Storage Queue. And from there, what it does is it reads from that storage queue, reads the message, and the message is going to be a name of a file. And what it does with that name is it reads a storage blob from a particular blob container, in this case, Hello World, and it reads that storage blob, and then it writes that into a different storage blob in the same container, but appended with the file name -copy. The input binding is basically a way for the Azure function to read data or get data. In this case, it's reading a source storage blob, and the output is basically a way for the function to write data somewhere. In this case, we're writing a new file as a blob. Just reviewing the code here for the storage queue trigger. So we're using app.storagequeue, and app is being imported from Azure Functions along with input and output. So we're using the storage queue trigger here, and we're given the function the name storage queue copy blob, and we're telling the storage queue trigger that we're using the queue name of copy blob queue. To get a connection to the storage account, we're providing the app setting storage account connection string. So we'll look up that value for the app setting and provide that to the connection. So that's going to be the connection string to the storage account. In the extra input section, we're providing one extra input of the blob input. So this is the storage blob that we're going to be reading from. And it uses the same connection string here, and it's defined a path to where we'll be reading the files from. Then we've got the extra output section, and we're just using the one blob output. And the main difference here is it's also a storage blob output, and we're using the same connection string, and we've got just a slightly different path. We're just adding the -copy to the end of the path. Then we've got the handler that will run when we're getting a message from the storage queue, and we take the message from the queue item parameter, and we're going to use the context passed as a parameter as well, and that's how we can log a message. I'm going to provide the string storage queue function processed work item, then the message we get from the storage queue, which is what we get from queue item. So in this case, it's just going to be the file name. We're going to add that as the message. So it's just going to log that. Then it's going to grab the input value, blob input value, and it's going to use the extra inputs to grab that. And then it's going to use the context extra outputs set function, and that will basically write the file to blob storage, reading the value from the input value. Why don't we have a look at the Terraform file now? It's just main.tf is the file name. It's got a bunch of different resources in it. We'll need a resource group, and we'll need a storage account. And for this storage account, it will have a standard account tier and account replication type of LRS. Then we've got a storage queue, and this is called copy blob queue, which is the same name as what we've given in the Azure function here, queue name copy blob queue. Continuing with the Terraform file, we've also got a container here, and we've given it the name Hello World to match up with what we've got here in the Azure function here. It's going to read the file from the Hello World container, and it's also going to write the same file to the Hello World container as well. Next, we've got the app service plan, and this will be the consumption plan. So that's what Y1 is for our function app. And yeah, it's given the OS type of Linux. Then we've got our log analytics workspace for reviewing the logs of our application, along with application insights for doing monitoring. Then we've got the function app, And we're using the resource Azure RM Linux function app. And we're connecting it to the storage account by providing the attribute storage account name and storage account access key. And then we're going to access those variables off the storage account we created earlier. Then we've got the service plan ID, which connects to the consumption plan we created above for the app service plan. Then we've got a site config section where we define that we're using Node version 20, and we're hooking up application insights by providing a connection string and the instrumentation key. Then we've got the app settings section, and these are basically environment variables that we're defining, and this environment variable is called storage account connection string, and we're accessing that off the storage account primary connection string. And that's what is used in the Azure function using the connection storage account connection string that actually accesses the app setting storage account connection string. So why don't we deploy this now? So what we'll do is we'll use Terraform to provision the infrastructure. So we'll do a Terraform init first. And it basically will make sure you've got the provider that you need to run this. Then you can do Terraform apply to start provisioning the infrastructure. So what we'll do first, it will calculate which resources it needs to provision. You can see it's planning to add 8 resources. So you can see the storage queue, the storage container. You can see the function storage, so the storage account, the app service plan, the resource group, the log analytics workspace, the function app, and the application insights resource. So yes, we want all those resources. So we just type yes, and it'll start provisioning those resources for us. Okay, so Terraform has completed provisioning those resources for us. So let's have a look in the resource groups here. We can have a look here in the resource group, and we can see the various things that have been created. So we've got the application insights, log analytics workspace, our function app, our storage account, and our app service plan. So I'll open the storage account and the function app. So for the function app, under functions, we have no functions there at the moment. So we'll need to add our function. So in order to publish our function that we've got here locally into our function app, we need to use the function Azure Function app publish command and then provide the name of our function app. So let's run that now. And one thing to note here as well, there's a .funkignore file here. I've updated it to remove anything to do with Terraform because I don't want anything to do with Terraform to be loaded into the function app itself, including that file space, because those files can be pretty big. So I wanted to exclude all that, so that's not going to get published. So it looks like that's been successful. So if we go back into the function app here and we refresh it, we should see one function there. And yep, we've got the storage queue copy blob function. So why don't we give it a test and see if it's going to work for us now. So what I'd like to do is look under the log section and basically use application insights to ingest the logs as they come through and show it to us as they come through live. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go into the storage account here and then go into the containers, and I'm going to upload 2 files in here. Now this won't invoke the function at this stage because that's not how the function is going to get triggered. The function is going to get triggered through a message being sent to the storage queue, so that will come later. So I need to upload 2 files here. So I've uploaded those 2 files as blobs now. What I'll do now is I'll go into the queue in the storage account, and yep, the queue has been created, which we put in the Terraform file. And now we can have a look at the logs here. We should have nothing here because we've sent no messages yet. So let's send our first message, and we'll use a file.txt as the message because I want it to pick up this file and then make a copy of it. So let's send a message using the Azure portal here. We'll go add message, give the message text of a file.txt and select OK. So if we have a look in the logs here, might have to wait a little bit to get the log message. It looks like we've got a message here logged, so we'll use this text to search for the log message. So it says storage queue function processed work item a file.txt, that was the message we just sent. So if we refresh the storage queue now, this message should be dequeued. Yep, that's gone. And if we check the storage account, we should see a file.txt copy in here. Yep, and if we have a look at that file, the file is called a file. It's just copied that text over for us, which is good. What I'll do next is I'll send a message with a file that doesn't exist. Now, it shouldn't create a blob in this scenario because it won't be able to read a file. It wouldn't be able to read this file, so it shouldn't create a file. We are seeing a message here that blob is not found, which is expected. What we'll do now is we'll just provide it with the correct name of the file, my.txt, just check if that works correctly. Okay, so that message has come through now, and it's processed that file. So if we refresh the storage account, it should have that my.txt copy created. What we can do now is also have a look in the metrics. We should be able to see some metrics showing the function is getting executed. So this might be slightly delayed, but we can see that we are getting at least 2 executions showing here. And if we check out the invocations, we should see some records of the function getting invoked. Okay, and like I said, this can be delayed, so we do see 1 record here. And the information that we log using context.log should be visible here as well. So we can see that text storage queue function processed work item, and then a file.txt. So that was the first file we processed. So that's available here too. So it might take a bit longer for the rest of the logs to show up. But now we can take down that infrastructure with a Terraform destroy. And that will basically delete everything that we've provisioned through Terraform. And after you say Terraform destroy, you'll also need to enter in a value of yes to proceed with destroying all the resources. So make sure to do that. So that's it for this tutorial. If you found it useful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel.